And we're back on Travel Michigan, where your trip begins at michigan.org. I'm George Zimmerman, along with Michelle Banache. And Michelle, one of our favorite places up next.
Absolutely. We're going to the Henry Ford, and it's fall at the Henry Ford, and we're going to talk about that with Jim Johnson, Senior Manager of Creative Programs. Welcome to the show, Jim.
Thank you very much.
So tell us about Fall Flavor Weekends. What's going on at the Henry Ford?
Those are September 29th and 30th, and then the next following weekend as well. And it's just a celebration of the fall season here at the Henry Ford, and this is layered on top of everything, all the other cool things that we do here, every day, all the buildings and all the experiences that you can have. This particular program is really focused more than anything on food and lots of historic cooking. We have an amazing array of historic buildings here at Greenfield Village, as people know, and many of them have actual operating kitchens with period cooking devices, fireplaces, wood-burning stoves, coal-burning stoves. And for the fall season, it all sort of comes together, and very many of the houses are doing very special cooking demonstrations throughout. So it's really kind of a treat for the senses during these weekends in Greenfield Village.
And so the cooking demos, and if we happen to stop by either next weekend or the weekend after that, we can sample some of these?
The way we do that is in our restaurant. We have a lot of different choices as far as where you can actually eat here at the Henry Ford. But the restaurants choose select recipes that are prepared in the historic buildings and then make those as entrees or side dishes or whatever things that you can purchase as part of your meal or just on their own if you care to. Our Taste of History restaurant sort of features all the different time periods in Greenfield Village, and that's where the majority of that will be going on.
That's great. Yeah.
And we also have our executive chef, Mike Trombley, will be doing cooking demonstrations at noon and 2 right in the restaurant on the Sundays. So that's kind of fun to come out for and check out what he'll be cooking this year.
And so I noticed that beer brewing is one of the activities?
Yes, and that is centered at our mid-18th century farmhouse from Connecticut, the Daggett House, and ale and beers and all kinds of things were sort of a staple in that time period, and we'll be doing brewing and demonstrating and talking about that whole sort of part of the foodways of the 18th century.
And so this, and obviously the Village is always a great experience, but basically these 2 weekends, you kind of get that extra experience of the fall season and then kind of the fall harvest and cooking experience.
That's right, and at Firestone Farm especially, which is a 7-acre working farm set in the mid-1880s, is the birthplace of Harvey Firestone, who was a good friend and actually somewhat of a business partner of Henry Ford during the hectic days of the Ford Motor Company building those millions of Model Ts.
Yep.
But it's the 1880s there, and we'll be actually showing a late 19th, early 20th century steam-powered threshing operation, and that'll be set up in the field there, and they'll be threshing some of the grain that was grown at the Firestone Farm on the weekends. And one thing I didn't mention is our fall farmers market. We have local growers and local food producers coming in, and they'll be setting up in the Village Pavilion, which is right on the edge of the Village Green, early on Saturday mornings of both weekends, and it's a place where you can come to yet another, but a very cool, immersive farm market.
So those are obviously very cool experiences. Next 2 weekends, fall flavor weekends going on in Greenfield Village. Now, as you mentioned, but this is on top of everything else you're doing. Now, so the Model Ts, are they still buzzing around the village as well? Or?
Yes. The steam-operated or the steam-powered locomotive will be running the tracks. The Model Ts will be running. The carousel will be going on our horse-drawn vehicles as well. You can purchase tickets separately, except for the horse-drawn vehicles, which is only included in the ride pass, which is also a good thing to get. Then you can ride the rides. Yep. All day long.
Yep. And to talk about the other things you've got going right now as far as what's happening in the museum, anything new with the factory tour, just kind of the rest of the experience you're offering.
Our first weekend of Fall Flavors is actually the ending weekend for the Titanic exhibit. That'll be the last days that will be here, and we expect that weekend to sell out well in advance. So anybody that sort of has ideas about coming for the exhibition that weekend needs to sort of get their tickets in advance, and we will be open till 9 p.m. On those weekend days in Henry Ford Museum for last-minute Titanic viewing, if you will.
Right.
But if you're seriously considering it, do get your tickets well in advance. The Ford Rouge factory tour is really exciting. The F-150 is they're building them as fast as they can possibly build them. So there's lots of activity going on over there. And from what I understand, the 2013 model has started to come into the line, and those are being built right now as well.
I think a lot of folks may remember that you also launched your new auto exhibit earlier in the year. What's the reaction been to that? And describe that a little bit for folks who may not be aware of it.
It's an enormous exhibit. What it replaced was also an enormous exhibit, but it's a much more focused and sort of easier to understand and easier to visit exhibit with really lots of new, exciting displays and a different array of vehicles on display. It's open to great fanfare. We've had some actually record attendance this past summer. Combining that with the Titanic exhibit, we've had some of the largest crowds we've seen here in over a decade here at the Henry Ford.
That's great. And then looking ahead, holiday season will be coming up. That's always a great time in the village and throughout the complex. You want to just talk about that?
And we're actually in preparations right now for a Halloween in Greenfield Village program, which is a very popular one. Those are Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays starting the second weekend of October. And again, those tickets tend to sell out. So if you're interested in that, I would, again, check tickets early and get tickets early. But that's a great event, and it's after hours, and it's sort of a walk through Greenfield Village, and we light over 900 jack-o'-lanterns that we carve, and it's just a really fun event for all members of the family. And then we launch right into preparations for our holiday season, and the Henry Ford Museum has activities going on, but holiday nights in Greenfield Village, and those dates can be seen on our website.
Yep.
There are 14 evenings planned, have become just a huge local family tradition, and it's starting to reach out and become sort of a regional destination as well.
Yeah, well, and you make a good point. So for any of those special events, whether it's the Fall Flavor Weekends, especially the first weekend, which also is the last weekend of Titanic, but for the Halloween nights and the holiday events, obviously advance tickets are available for all of those, correct?
That's correct. And thehenryford.org is our website, and you can navigate through that, and we'll give you sort of instructions as to how to get tickets and who to call for more information if you need it.
Yep. And so even having said all that, looking ahead to next year, have you got some other things that are coming up that we should know about?
We have a really cool World's Fair exhibit that will be coming into the gallery in the Henry Ford Museum. It will be Henry Ford's 150th birthday. So we've got a lot of activities planned throughout the village and throughout the year, especially through the summer season. And our whole array of special events starts over, and we've got a lot of fun things planned for those as well.
Yeah, that's great. So back to the Fall Flavor Weekends for a second. So big crowds expected, and have you done this? Is this the first year of this, or have you done this before?
We've done it in some form for probably 25 or 30 years. Okay. There's just been different things, different iterations of it. It's very weather dependent, as far as crowds go, but on a beautiful late September, early October weekend, we can see, good-sized crowds coming out for the weekends, because it's just a fun, great place to be for that time of year.
Right, and as you mentioned, the Halloween stuff starts right after that, and I guess too, to make, the one thing about Halloween events is, some are kind of more geared towards older young people. Some are suitable for really any age. How would you classify what you're doing there at the village?
Ours is fairly unique in the fact that it's family friendly, but we have, a great sort of somewhat scary environment. Greenfield Village after dark, and a lot of the imagination can run kind of wild. And what we do is we sort of play up on the popular Gothic literature and adventure literature that was popular amongst the American people in the early part of the 20th century up through the mid 20th century. So the decorations, the vignettes, the costumes, and things like that are all in keeping with that. But we are not doing a sort of the shock, gore, and awe that you see at so many of the sort of adult-themed Halloween experiences. But it's spooky enough, but it's not gross, let's put it that way.
How long does it take to get through the village, generally?
On a normal day, it's an all-day experience. You can do it if you're really pushing it in about 2.5 to 3 hours. The Halloween program is sort of a timed walk, and again, depending how much time you take, and if you stop to eat and things like that can also be a 2.5 hour experience.
Okay, well, it all sounds great. That's Jim Johnson, Senior Manager of Creative Programs at the Henry Ford, talking about all the great things coming up there through the holiday season, starting with the next 2 weekends and Fall Flavor Weekends. And that's all the time we have today for Travel Michigan. Thanks to Michelle Benoche for joining us, Mark Blackwell, our engineer. And remember to travel Michigan, where your trip begins at michigan.org.